Imagine being locked in a prison cell for a crime you didn't commit. The evidence that could prove your innocence, it exists, but no one will test it. You miss birthdays, funerals, holidays, and time with your family. You basically miss your whole life. This was the case for Walter McMillan, a black man in 1980s Alabama who was wrongfully convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. In Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, Stevenson describes how police ignored alibis and built a case on lies. Walter spent 6 years on death row, terrified, innocent, and powerless. And Walter wasn't alone. Thousands of people have faced similar situations. That's why I'm going to be talking about the Innocence Project today, a nonprofit working to free the wrongfully convicted and reform the justice system. Why does this matter to us? Wrongful convictions don't just ruin lives, they let the real criminals go free. And any of us, or someone we love, could be next. I've researched this topic using the Department of Justice, the National Registry for Exonerations, and the Innocence Project itself. So let's talk about the problem, solution, and what we can do to help. The justice system is failing the innocent. Since 1989, more than 3,400 people have been exonerated in the US. That's a combined 30,000 years of freedom lost. According to the National Registry of Exonerations, false confessions, mistaken eyewitnesses, and bad forensics cases are the major causes. There's also the racial disparity factor as well. Black Americans are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted than white Americans. And even when DNA evidence exists, people can't always access it. According to the Innocence Project, 36% of states don't guarantee DNA testing after conviction, even when it could prove someone's innocence. This means people spend decades in prison when the truth is sitting somewhere off in a lab. In the legal defense side of this, according to the Department of Justice, public defenders in many areas are handling more than 300 cases at once. That is double the recommended ethical limit. And with that kind of overload, mistakes are basically inevitable, and innocent people will suffer. Take Richard Phillips, for example. He spent 45 years in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. He said when he got out, "I always believed the truth would come out, but in the end I lost everything." So now I'm going to show you a map from the National Institute of Justice, and this shows states that have enacted arrestee DNA collection laws. So some states have all felonies, while some states have a subset list of felonies, and then there's a lot that don't do it at all. And then there's a few states that have more specific laws in general. So just take a note, look at it for a second, and then take note of what your home state does with DNA collection laws. So, what is the Innocence Project and what do they do? The Innocence Project was founded in 1992 to help people like Walter and Richard. They've helped exonerate over 240 people using DNA evidence, but they don't stop there. They go beyond the courtroom and they're changing laws and transforming policy. So, specifically, they provide free legal representation for those who've exhausted their appeals, and they preserve and test DNA evidence, while also pushing for legislation to elevate standards for forensic science. And in addition to this, they train law students and future public defenders, and lastly, they advocate for open file discovery. But the system still needs real structural reform. The Innocence Project can't do this all by themselves. So we need laws that guarantee DNA testing in all 50 states. We need to fully fund public defenders so no one's fate will depend on a lawyer with over 300 clients. And lastly, we need to mandate recordings of police investigations to prevent false confessions, especially in cases with minors. In our society in America, justice should never depend on your income or where you live. It should be a right to all. Now, imagine this for a second, a system where if you're accused of a crime, your lawyer has ample time and resources to investigate your case. DNA is tested before trial, not 10 years later after you've been sitting in prison, where confessions are only valid if they're on video, and where no one, and I mean no one, goes to prison except when the evidence is solid, ethical, and transparent. Now imagine the lives that would get saved or the quality of life would raise. The parents who would get to raise their kids, the innocent who stay free, and the real criminals don't slip away while an innocent person takes the fall. So let me tell you about Anthony Ray Hinton. He spent 30 years on death row in Alabama for crimes that he didn't commit. He was convicted on a faulty ballistics case and then an unprepared defense attorney. And according to the Equal Justice Initiative, Hinton's public defender couldn't afford an expert witness to challenge the state's evidence. So again, another case of underfunded public attorneys. When he was finally released, Hinton said, "They had every intention of executing me for something I didn't do. The only reason I'm here today is because someone finally listened." And that's what the Innocence Project is all about. Giving these people who have been locked away for a long time just someone to listen to and to fight for their case when no one will do it anymore. So to kind of wrap up, wrongful convictions aren't just statistics on a paper or states on a map. They're stolen lives and lost years of people's lives. The Innocence Project is doing powerful work in our society today, but they need support, awareness, and legal change. Justice in our country should never be a gamble, but rather something grounded in truth. And this truth should never be out of reach just because you can't afford a better lawyer. So here's what we can do. Visit theinnocenceproject.org, read the stories on there, share them, write to representatives, and become an advocate for this. And help change a system that's failing too many people in America. Justice doesn't defend itself, but rather we have to stand up for it. Thank you.